And namaste to all the participants who have joined for the third Acharya Devo Bhava. I think I had the privilege of being part of the earlier two episodes. And thanks to all those, you know, I've been telling the organizers that why are you trying to get me? So probably I think the answer was given by Sudha very beautifully that you have to wake up people not only from in the session but outside the session too. So probably I think I have a beautiful panel with me which is going to talk on a very, very important topic. So salute to all the people who before me who presented. I was witnessing to few sessions right from yesterday, trying to understand whether it was Dr. Jayaraman or Professor YSR, and the earlier panel, trying to learn from people that what exactly was being felt or done in this particular space. But the topic which was, shared when Jyoti Madam had called me and said that we are trying to talk about a topic like talent management and that too in education, I really had a little shock. Shock in the sense was that in India, the guru is always considered as somebody who influences somebody's thinking and then tries to take the people into one particular direction. It can be through ideas, it can be through, practices, it could be anything. But today, the situation has come up that today we are trying to talk about a very, very important topic that the guru is in trouble today. And when the guru is in trouble, so what can be a good mixture of panel where we have Ms. Suprabha. She's officiating and she has been a teacher and now moving into a role of leadership. And then we have Ms. Sonali. She's already a principal, so that means she has moved one step ahead. And then we have somebody who's nurturing this is Rajeev. And then my good friend, I should say, or guru, or somebody who inspires every time when I hear to him, Raja Krishnamoorthy or Kitty. That's how we call him as Kitty. And a belated birthday to you, sir. I think on 22nd, 26th, his 69th birthday was there. So I think we need people like you who continuously inspire us. And I have seen him in a formal setup of, corporates. I have seen him in school setup, how beautifully he changes his real life situation, not only on screen and off screen too. I think that's something very, very important. So we have a very, very interesting panel. But what is very important in today's session that when we have kind of come here, we really need to answer three simple questions. Three simple questions. And that's it. Who is this guru? About whose talent are we trying to talk about? Managing. Okay. Who is this guru that we are trying to talk about? Is there a definition for it? Is there something that has been, thought across and people are trying to look at it? Second is, why are we trying to consider that this particular guru? Because by definition, when you try to say anybody inspiring, but when you try to talk about a teacher, a facilitator, or you may use any kind of vocabulary for this particular avatar of that particular individual, I think it's very, very important. So we really need to understand why are we talking about this today? And the third thing which is very important in the session is that how do we keep this particular profession guru in India to be made in such a way that people come and join and then say that, okay, we would like to add a value. I think it is very interesting. It is very interesting in new education policy when you try to talk about the new national education policy. First time at least after 70 years, what is heartening to see is that we are also called as professionals. Teachers are also called as professionals because so far it was something called as last resort. People used to consider as last resort and they used to say, okay, kuch nahi mila, I think let's get into becoming teacher and then you will somehow be able to do it. But I think I'm not only looking at that particular role, but I'm also trying to, blame some of the schools too, because in schools too, if the recognition, the role could have been, projected in a particular way could have been much, much, much better. Because thankfully I travel across country, see multiple kinds of school. So the teacher recruitment is again something very, very important. So I just wanted to spend 1 or 2 minutes on this. Somebody comes for admission for LKG. Okay. And this particular person says there is a qualification of the mother, says that you are a postgraduate in certain subject. And then suddenly says, you see the school advertisement, where they say we have the well-qualified, experienced faculty, and then there is a kid who comes for the admission, and then we say, oh, aap kya kar rahe hain sham ke waqt pe, din ke waqt pe kya karte hain? Why don't you come and join us as teacher? So the whole process, the sanctity of that particular process itself somehow gets lost. And this is where what I'm going to do is that I'm not going to give you any kind of gyan. I'm going to kind of ask the panelists, because this panel is something very, very important. Each one of them at different level of maturity should be able to, give their perspective. So my first question to all the panelists is, what is your first reaction for a couple of minutes? I'll start from aspiring, that is going to be principal, then to principal, then HR, and then somebody who is seeing from outside. Okay, so Kitty sir, I'm going to keep you as a person who is an observer, who sees inside, outside, both the sides. So that's something which I'm going to ask you to do that. Yeah. So we'll start with Suprabha, ma'am. Suprabha, just get going. What are some of your first reactions for a couple of minutes on the topic when you heard talent management mantras for school excellence? Come on, go ahead.
Namaste, everyone. At the outset, first, thank you, and then I proceed with the answer without wasting much time on it. The first thought that came into my mind was, I have been a lecturer with the B.Ed colleges also for 10 years. So when we would be doing the induction, or even the when the admission process was on, typically people who came to me were not actually the students themselves, but their parents, their grandparents, their brothers, their sisters, who came with the thought that teaching is the best profession. You get off at 2 o'clock, max 3 o'clock, you go home, take care of home, your child studies in the same school,
and 2 months holidays. And 2 months holidays also.
And 2 months holidays also. All of them came with exactly the same thought process. Of course, there was some 10% who really came for the teaching. They were really passionate. But typically, that's why when I read this, I was actually transported back to those days. But over a period of time, I see a lot of change in teaching as a profession. Like, we have been always wanting this to be called a profession. And like you said, thanks, NEP says now it is a profession. And we are glad that it is a profession. And it is a 24/7 profession. Now, we teachers' minds are working all the time. We are like thinking, what next? Tomorrow this will come up. The child may ask this. The child may not know this. What do I have an answer for? So it's all the time thinking. We are reading. We are figuring out. I attended a couple of sessions here as well. I also took down a lot of notes. Oh yes, I can do this. I can do this. So the first thought was, of course, that this is what it has been. But then for sure, the future looks really bright with the NCT coming up, the changing of how the B.Ed curriculum should be. Because I always had felt that the B.Ed curriculum has got nothing in it. There's no teaching practice, which is the most essential. I would always compare it with medical profession, where there was an entire 1 year of only internship at the end. So the person had to actually do everything from taking care of the patient to whatever had to be done. While teachers don't have that kind, and they simply jump into the profession. So I think we are going in a very wonderful direction now, with lot of new input, lot of new teachers coming up, lot of new ideas coming in, especially AI getting into the school, technology getting into the school has also created a new platform. A lot of teachers who are interested in technology are now they are learning out a lot. And I think this was a great phase, the COVID, where we all did a number of courses. So we all got something new to give to our children. So that's where I am right now with this.
Thank you, Suprabha. Now let me move to Sonali. Sonali, ma'am, aap bataiye ki what is that you thought when you got the first invitation from Sriram Hyderabad or Sriram Universal School for the program?
Thank you very much, Dr. Kumaran. Namaste and a very good afternoon to all. First of all, heartiest congratulations to TSUS Hyderabad for yet another successful conclave. I'm so thankful to Dr. Jyoti Reddy and the school management for inviting me to participate in this discussion. Absolutely honored and privileged, sir. And to the entire team of panelists here, Very, very proud to be here amongst all of you. So when we say talent management and, the mantra for school excellence, I thought it was just the perfect topic that I would want to speak on. So when we say talent management, I remember the words by famous American entrepreneur Mary Kay Ash. If I was to quote her, I quote, "Those who are blessed with the most talent don't necessarily outperform everyone else. It's the people with follow through who excel." So according to me, talent is not simply what you are born with. It is the sum of your experiences. It is how you take that opportunity you get as you grow in an institution. And management is creation of those opportunities. When we say creating opportunities, there's a whole lot of layers that go into identifying talent or create space for those talents to blossom. The ethos and work culture of an institution is what is at the core. First off, when there is trust in the organization and a firm belief in its values and mission, one naturally steps up and proactively uses one's own talent when the opportunity arises. We have seen educators and team members blossom in ways we would have never imagined. Nothing makes us happier as leaders than to have a team member walk up to you and share passionately about something new that they have tried with the children, or walk into a classroom where that's taking place. To give an example, when one of our Sri educators, a sociology teacher, was given charge of the culinary club in school, she took on the challenge with her colleagues and did more than just make fun recipes. She helped the children create a kitchen garden, grow vegetables, reap their harvest, write about in their blogs, and more. And under her guidance, we even participated in the Terra Madre Slow Food Festival at Madrid. And children went on to present their ideas of sustainable development goals in a webinar with other students. And recently, during an interaction with an eminent geobiologist, the discussion led to contemplating, creating a very own food forest. That's how far we have gone from a vegetable patch to a food forest. It was yet another proud moment for us, when she was recognized for her efforts very recently by Earth Day Network, and her article was published in their latest ebook on climate literacy. So we do talk of talent and innovation in the same breath often, and why not? The most important factor here is the space that we can give our teachers, because when there is space to innovate, try out, and experiment, knowing that it is all right to fail, but imperative to move on and keep trying, that's when our task is done. Also, as leaders, being open to new ideas is important. So hearing them out and being willing to even try them, implement them, and most importantly, being okay with those ideas failing sometimes. So in other words, promoting a growth mindset where failure is seen as a stepping stone.
Sonali ma'am, I'll take up your examples in the second part. I just wanted to know what's your first reaction.
Okay, great, sir. Great. Over to you, sir.
Rajeev, please go ahead. You have been somebody who has been, in the education sector, in and out, and nurturing people. So just go ahead, Rajeev.
Thank you, Dr. Senthil Kumaran, and namaste to all panelists and to all the members who are part of the conference, and a special thanks to TSUS and Dr. Jaipuria ma'am. So we heard about, Sunita mentioning, 4 dimensions of talent management. So the first thing that struck to me as Dr. J ma'am spoke to me was, wow, this is one school which is forward looking and is somebody who is really interested about talent and not just, about usually recruiting, and running the business. So these were my initial thoughts, Dr. Senthil Kumar, in terms of, appreciating that here is an organization willing to put a step forward, and learn with various industry colleagues and HR professionals to see how they can build really the talent, ahead and understand this whole talent management concept better. As we all know that there are these 4 concepts, which is hiring, retention, talent and development, and the compensation management. But the question which often comes to our minds, which should come to everybody's mind, is, are these balanced? And if you reflect back, you will see organization is like a wave. How does it move? Just like a sea wave which is there. So at times when it is, December and January, it is all about hiring. So, the only thing that comes in mind is, next year, do I have my 100% staff in place or no? Have I secured the people or no? right? It comes in that. And come the season of, performance management, July, August, everybody is super excited, and the whole focus of the organization is on retention. At that time, have I done enough in terms of my increments? Have I done enough in terms of my promotion? Have I looked at it holistically? So, and the talent development, is throughout the year, barring of course the 2 months of holidays. But if you look at it, it is more towards technical training and less towards the people management and the people leadership training, which is there. So if you see at all points of time, from an outside perspective, if you look at it, it is some kind of a wave, where one part of the talent management will peak, whereas the rest will go behind. But the beauty of the system, of a sustained organization growth is if you're able to bring all 4 dimensions at one go, and then be able to work around it, through your inside out approach. And what I mean by inside out approach is, typically all these, so-called fancy jargon, and HR is famous for using jargons and, fancy words. So talent management, we will say. So what is talent management? Or talent acquisition, talent retention. So very big words we will use. That's how we keep our brand high, HR brand high. So basically the organizations over here need to focus on integrating this into their own culture, and it should be a part of the fabric and not just be a topic or a flavor, of the season. So these are my opening thoughts, please.
No, Rajeev, I think that's something very, very important, because being a student of personal management for some time, I tried to do a course also on that. When we went into the first personal management class, I think I still remember my professor saying, if you want to really know what is personal management, he said only one word. He said it starts with R and finishes with R. So he said recruitment to retirement. If you know everything, I think the whole personal management session is over for you. So you don't have to worry much about it. Let's hear from Kitty. Kitty sir, just go ahead, because you have seen, and your company's name itself is Talent Maximus, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. But I think it's very important you have seen. So your first thoughts on the topic and your reaction. Go ahead, sir.
I'm completely in agreement with Rajeev sir about this romantic phraseology of talent in the first place. I don't like to quote it so loudly, but the fact remains that this is the 46th year of being an HR specialist. And I can tell you, the phraseology has changed. Labor management to manpower management to personal management to human resource management to human capital management to talent management. In Tamil, we say, "Pazhaya kallu pudiyam mandaila," the old wine in the new bottle. I mean, I'm not saying it from a cynical point of view, because as a practicing consultant for 36 years now, what I see happening is that there is the same kind of a process that needs to be managed. The phraseologies are differing. Sure, the perspectives are differing. But the real question is, what is the most important perspective that needs to change? And I think that's what this topic is triggering in my mind. And I would share with you something that I shared with a group of some 250 school principals just about a month back in Chennai. And that is this question: are you, as heads of the institutions, deliverers and administrators, or developers and leaders? And from here is the cascading that comes down. Are you tools of delivering results? Are you talents for development of minds and institution? And if this fundamental question is not addressed, what we will be doing is a superficial dealing with what needs to be managed. And I think from there, we need to make a significant kind of a shift. Because the more and more we are caught up with an education system, which is evaluation oriented, assessment oriented. And I'm not talking about the intricacies of exams and all that. I'll come to that separately. When I say evaluation and assessment oriented, which is caught up with so much, 99% of the time, with the objective reality of life and minds, and not focusing on as much as required on the subjective reality of awareness, consciousness, and being human. I think we are on the same track. We can play different kind of music for the track. And I think if this perspective change shift does not come in, we will continue to be, kind of doing the same things, maybe with different phraseology. So I think we need to ask in this forum a couple of important questions. What are the new change perspectives that we need to have? What are the new kind of role and life perspectives that we need to have, especially when we are looking at youngsters being attracted to the teaching profession, to the education field? I think that scenario is completely different. So I would request that in this panel, let's ask this significant question. What are the change perspective, society-wise, and for an individual in terms of role-taking wise and meaning to life-wise? Like, for example, I'll just talk about one thing. Maybe till the last decade, the whole question was of employment, permanent jobs, regular jobs, committed income and all that. But I think what we are looking at the current mini is and forward is something completely different. Ola is much better than owning 2 cars. All right. Rentals are much better than investing and wasting money, huge money for lifetime. From relationship to retirement homes, everything is a transitionary kind of things in life. So I think we need to build perspectives. Once we have those perspectives clear, I think that the details of acting on those would become clear is my submission. That's my opening response to this. Talent or tools?
Talent.
Are we really talking about tools of delivery, which is what teachers are in institutions today, rather than having this romantic phraseology of talent? And if you want to be talent, which is what it should be, I think Rajeev kind of touched the core sensitive soft area. Are you dealing with the minds of the people, minds and the spirituality, awareness-based, the soulfulness of both the individuals and the collective culture? I think we need to ask bigger questions.
But don't you think that it is because you have seen in the corporate world? That's where I'm going to go reverse direction now. You have seen in the corporate culture, particularly, that the alignment to somebody's value system to an organization, system. So that particular alignment, how much it is important when we are trying to get people on board and the people who are joining both ways.
Yeah, it's extremely critical, Senthil. But the point is, even the recognition and the imbibement and the exposition of that by the heads of the institutions is first important.
Correct.
Because if that happens, then there is a chance of that to cascade. I mean, being a consultant, of course, names and other things are very sensitive. But I've worked with some amazingly top-notch, well-known institution and institutional leaders. And I would describe, one of them I would describe saying that the person had the clarity that I know everything about children, but the person did not know children, period. Knowing about something and knowing something are two fundamentally different things.
Correct.
In terms of leadership style, in terms of management influence, in terms of looking at teachers, you would find that there's a slave driving taking place. But you wanted many things to happen. So this idea of change the system, change the institution, but don't expect me to change, both in the corporate and in institutions, is a huge challenge. All right.
Thank you.
You give me permission to open up. Okay.
That's something very, very important. See, because what happens is many a times when we talk to people, we are more compliance oriented. There is a circular and then immediately we say, okay, all of us have to have a vision, and the English department starts working on vision, and they put the whole vision and it goes on the board. But as you rightly said, I think even the head of the institution is not very sure why he or she is sitting at that particular role. I think, Rajeev, you work with large schools, large network of schools. So what's your perspective, or what are some of the things when you try to talk about the practices, particularly from the practices when you say, instead of saying HR practices, how do you help people to progress in multiple avatars, not roles? Somehow I hate to say roles. Avatars, what the teacher comes in. He comes in as a teacher, he moves into next role, next. So multiple things what they are trying to play, not in the organization part of it, but when it comes to the child. Because I have seen principals waiting at gate for the children and engaging them with meaningful conversation, that how they are doing today and what happened in yesterday's class. So I can list, principals who have actually kind of done. So some of your experiences, Rajeev.
Thank you, Senthil. I will address this in two parts, one from the staff perspective and one from the future staff perspective. Okay, and I'll refer to the future staff very shortly. What I mean over here is, if I put certain boundary conditions, of India as a country first, and education within India as compared to outside world, if you see, then, outside world, teacher is a teacher is a teacher, which means what? There is nothing called as an early years teacher, primary teacher,
Correct.
secondary teacher, senior secondary teacher, DP teacher, and all that. So the pay scales, of a teacher remain same. Whether you're an early years teacher or you're a DP teacher. Whereas in India, we have this fancy, we have, various segments, earlier segments, primary segments, and the salaries or the benefits, everything varies from, that. So that is something which I see as a roadblock. A roadblock. Why? Because as a teacher, I have come across thousands of people who are so passionate and want to be in the primary segment only. They love being with the earlier kids. They love being with primary kids. It's not that they hate the secondary kids, but their whole heart, is so much associated to the primary kids. Now, this as a people, people like Suprabha ma'am or Sonali Gupta ma'am who are heading institutions. Now, this is a big business challenge for them. What do we do? Because every year there has to be a recognition for the efforts that are contributed. There has to be a certain reward. But how do I raise the salary? How do I give them additional benefits when the segment itself does not allow me to do that? Because there is a ceiling which comes automatically because of that. And that's where the conversations, start breaking. And that's where distancing starts happening. So I want to flip the coin completely outside. And I'm saying, why wait for appraisals to happen? Why wait for increments to happen? Why don't we look at all the people, as the center, and education on the outside? Whereas we think education is in the center and people are on the outside. Let's flip it and bring people in the center and then look at each person and have those career conversations with every individual, right?
Sure.
And as a strong proponent of great place to work, I have seen actually results happen when you are listening, when you are allowing them to speak, when you're including teachers, and when you're developing. So when some of these dimensions are brought on the table, and with every individual you're having, not CTC, but career conversations, career to conversations. If you have those kind of conversations, they are far more meaningful, and I have seen a lot of impact of that. For example, in some of the schools where I have worked, retentions have improved from 60 to 90%. And this is some other language that I want to change upon. Many people, including HR, and actually first HR only will speak, attrition kitna hai? Aap logon ka attrition kitna hai? How much is the attrition? And it's a very common language. We never, we are more concerned
it's become
about
part of the dashboard of the CEO.
Yeah,
and his own role.
Yeah, the dashboard of CEO also will say, Raja Krishnamoorthy sir's dashboard will say attrition. But then here, what we're trying to propose is look at retention. Look retention as a matrix. How much retention do I have? Do I have 80%? Do I have 85%? Do I have 90%? Right. So this is as part of the part A of the answer. Very briefly in terms of existing. A completely, innovative 360-degree thought that I want to put on the table, as a challenge to all the esteemed colleagues over here is that just small diverse, I'll just divert slightly. If you look at cricket, which is pretty famous in India, and most of them are cricket lovers generally, and now of course many sports have also come up. But you see, there is a concept called as IPL. Right, Indian Premier League, and we are all familiar with that. I will not get into that. But essentially what it does is it allows us to select future potential, cricketers for our nation, right? Now, if you look at education as an industry, most of the industries, right, don't have IPLs, which means what? They have to depend on educational institutions to give the product from where they will take their product. And the product here that I'm referring to is the student. Right. So the student then graduates and then the industry is able to pick up. Now look at the other way. As education institutions, we have never looked at our own students as our future staff, as our own future team members. Have you ever looked at it that way? No. Every teacher asks, okay, you look good in science, let me groom you towards science. You look sharp in arts, let me groom you towards arts. So we are, as educators and as school institutions, we try to develop IPL people for others, right? Where is it that we are developing for ourselves?
Please, fans
Right? And that is something that I feel when a student is presenting, we are, as educators, we look at the student's ability to be able to convey the topic, right? Or the ability to present the topic. Sure. We are not able to change our lens to measure whether the student is able to facilitate the discussion and whether other students can talk about it. So that is where the teacher mindset comes, because what is a teacher? At the end of the day, teacher is able to facilitate that whole concept, and everybody in the class is able to have their understanding on that particular concept. So my view is we are sitting on a gold mine. We are sitting on thousands and thousands of students who can be tomorrow our teachers, and thereby we can improve this industry and the quality, by attracting them at early stage. So
yeah, I completely agree with you, Rajeev, because when we try to talk about, there is a mindset issue, which I think Kitty sir also made a mention, that when you are in a primary teacher, you need a basic qualification, compliance required qualification, and then you are very happy. People forget that even a PhD in early years should actually be going and working in early years, rather than somebody who has just completed a diploma and then trying to go in. I'm not against the qualification. I'm saying if there is a passionate teacher, none of these things are required, because he or she will keep learning about it. So I completely agree with you. Sonali ji, aap bataiye ki you have been in the sector for some time now. When you try to talk about teachers coming to you and some practices which may be followed at your school, just one or two now if you can share, and then we will move on to Suprabha.
Okay, so I would like to share about two things that as a school we do, which works very well, not only to attract teachers, but also to retain them. A lot of space to work, to have that confidence.
We lost you for a couple of seconds, ma'am. Can you repeat the statement?
Am I audible now?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to discuss about creative freedom, and that's what we give at our school. The pandemic has taught us that. We all know how it started, and the parents out there were waiting that here are some elderly teachers who might not be able to take on technology, but look at the experience that they have all gone through. We've all learned, and we've been able to take on technology so easily and so effectively. So once we give them the creative freedom, give them the space to try out, handhold them, and help them believe that it's okay to fail, I think that goes a long way. I think not being judgmental, and like Mr. Rajeev said, a lot of dialogue with them as to what is it that we can do as a school to support them. And something that we do at our school is beginning of the academic session or even earlier, we get the teachers to create a wish list for the school and for their personal growth. So that gives us an insight into what is going on in their minds. How is it that as a school we can grow, and how is it that we can support this person to grow? And that helps us plan better for the coming academic year, keeping again the vision and the mission statement in mind. So that has worked very, very well. And again,
Sonali, ma'am, one question here, because you said a very important point about this technology and teachers acquiring technical skills to deliver something.
Right.
Does this mean that if you're not pushed to the corner, see, technology companies tried over the years to get technology into education institutions. Absolutely. It has been sorry to say, it has not worked to the levels what it aspired for. There is a need of a COVID to come in and push all of us.
I completely agree there, because, being very, very fond of technology myself, there was always an endeavor on our part to kind of push teachers to it. Again, the training were there, they were happening. Right? They chose to be, probably some of them, not all, some really enjoy, and that's when the talent comes up. But like I said, that talent again is a sum total of all the experiences of the opportunities that come your way. Here is a situation, and probably the teacher had the potential to take on technology, but they don't want to move out of their comfort zone. So I think as team leaders, it's very, very important for us to push teachers out of that comfort zone with that belief that yes, they'll be able to deliver. It's not going to be so difficult. And when they have the confidence that the management is standing by them, ready to, work for their professional development, support them, I think it just comes on very, very easily.
Sure. Thank you very much, Suprabha. I think you have been, teacher now, and you are now officiating principal. Okay, so you are getting into the new avatar. So from teacher to officiating principal, and what are you getting into now? See, you have been a teacher for some time. Now you are going to get into this particular thought process. What are some of the things that you have planned for yourself as a teacher? Because you're going to get into a new role. See, when we are a teacher, we say, if I was principal, probably I would have done all this. Okay. So I would like to hear from you that you are just in the transition. So what are some of 3-4 things that you would like to kind of talk about quickly?
So I would share in 2 parts again. Part 1, as a teacher. So I've been the vice principal of the school. So I was part already there in that, the management side. But yet, there's something which I observed throughout my previous leaders, the way the things had been was the talent. We did not have to tell the teachers come out with something. Our teachers naturally came up with a lot of ideas, but talent is already there. Talent not only just academically, but talent of bringing up or getting probably music into academics or getting sports into academics, so which was already there, and a number of teachers all the time came up with a lot of ideas. We in our school have initiated number of new practices, like we have included socio-emotional learning from nursery class. We have included design thinking from class 1. We have
Suprabha, what we will do is that I think it's very important that let's contain ourselves only to teacher.
Sure.
Because teacher is very, very important for us, and we don't get forums to talk about.
So what I'm got it. So what I was trying to say is that when we introduce these new programs, actually it was the teacher first who had to take this on. Going back to the children was the next step. So first was training the teachers to understand what this is all about, and if they could bring this in their own lives first. Now that's where we actually started getting a lot of new talents emerging in our school. Now people came up with so many ideas which we also did not know that the teachers had, and that was a great boon, and the teachers have stayed on. On the other hand, as part of the leadership team of the school, we had this huge role of actually keeping an eye on what all talents our teachers have, and how can we actually nourish it further, so that and it actually helped. The teachers do not leave the school. We have teachers who are retiring from the school rather than leaving the school, and we are not actually looking at attrition at all. Rather, the leadership team has always been out there talking to teachers. Like you mentioned, there are teachers, we had teachers who are only happy in primary. Like our headmistress, the primary headmistress was offered to become a vice principal, and she said, no, I love being with my children, so let me be there.
Yeah, I completely agree. No, I completely agree with you. If you want to kill a teacher, make him principal. Automatically, the teacher in her will get killed with the routine panchayat activity, what is being done by him or her. I completely agree.
That's why most school leaders also have some classes to teach.
I'm sorry if there are the principals here. I don't demean any one of you. This is just an idea, because it's a very important point.
No, what you're saying is very right, because a lot of administrative work takes up a lot of our time. That truly happens because I teach as well as take care of administration both. So bringing the balance is so important at where I am right now. But for sure, like you had mentioned, all the teachers are doing a lot. Like you said, pandemic has opened so many new areas. Also bringing in vocational education, vocational subjects in the school. That is also, Rajeev ji spoke about future-ready teachers and future-ready children also.
Sure. This is where what
is the future, she can't actually train the children to be future-ready.
I take your point there, ma'am. When you talked about future-ready, I think this is where we have to look at industry.
Yeah.
Again, I'll go back to the industry, Rajeev and Kitty, because they are the people who have actually defined something called as competencies.
Yeah.
Every role they have defined very beautifully the competencies, which is missing, unfortunately, which is missing in the school education sector, even in higher education sector. At least when the new education policy today is talking about the competency-based education. But unfortunately, what's happening is most of the time we are finding it becomes rows, and there is a circular and rows and column getting filled, unfortunately. So let's hear from Kitty and then from Rajeev about what exactly it means when we say competencies for a role or for avatar, what exactly it means. Then I'll come back again to them. In the meantime, I want both of you to keep thinking about professional standards. Do we have something like this in school education sector as leaders? Yes, Kitty.
Sure. The easiest way to understand competency is to know the ASK triangle, a combination of knowledge, K, and skills, S, and attitudes, A. So the behavioral dimension, the doability dimension, and the knowledge, the mind, with dimension. This is the combination that we can very easily understand. And whatever the roles are, be it in an educational institution, be it into an organizational, whatever, you can pick up this, kind of triangle and then categorize them in whichever way that you want to. But I think when it comes to talent, the fundamental is the competency, kind of part of it. But I'm saying when it comes to talent, I think the institution has to first identify and state what is the differentiating factor that I or this institution wants to bring in, which is going to demand a particular competency or a talent or a capability, which is going to show a differentiating kind of characteristic, a different value, and add-on price. When I say price, respect about the whole thing. Because then that becomes the value and the culture anchoring of that particular institution. And the moment that is there, along with your normative kind of competencies of A, S, and K, then you're starting to actually go on a journey. And that's something I liked about what Sonali ma'am mentioned. If you're talking about a flow, then we're talking about a journey. I think institutions must start talking about the journey of life than what I call as a controlled manufacturing activity of 12 years or 14 years or whatever it is. So if that is so, there has to be a value-driven kind of a thing, and that value has got to be different, exclusive, extremely impressive kind of a thing. I think then the rest of the things can kind of fit into that. But more important today, along with competency, I'm also saying pick up the context reality also. Competency with the context reality. Because what is the context reality today? I'll just spend couple of minutes on that. From hierarchy to equality, from exclusivity to availability, from years of experience to ease of exposure, from controlled education to anytime, anywhere, anyhow education, time-space control to open unlimited, location-dependent effectiveness to non-dependent, on location environment, railroad definition of progress to mushrooming evolution progress. Significant differences. These are. And at the individual level, look at what is happening. Respect is unconditional, not under any identities, not under labels, not under age, not under pedigree, not under hierarchy. No way. And respect is unconditional. Acceptance is beyond identities. Communicate to connect, not control. Style is to inform, not form. Earlier we used to feel very good. No, I'm molding them in our own kind of style. Don't mold. Allow us to evolve. So from form to inform, and that really becomes from formal to informal. Leadership is not a vertically structured entity where on the top one sits and says, this is the leader. Very clear idea that lead is a journey where you're walking together. Sometimes you're in front. A lot of times your hands are around and you're together. And sometimes you actually take a backseat and say, Aap mein hai, aap aage jaiye, I'll follow you. I think unless we get the change perspective clear, believe me, the competency package part of it is the easiest, Senthil, and my other friends out here.
Sure.
But I think this perspective, this cultural anchoring, and this value drive, and this combination of being both a deliverer and a developer, if this can be brought together, and I think that's the most beautiful thing that we can do to the education sector.
So
I
do
think
you think yeah. So do you think that it is mandatory or it is compulsory that the schools need to sit across as a team, as a community, to define or redefine what value or differentiator they would like to add?
Even before you complete, I was already saying yes, yes, yes. I'm saying that is, that is the very exercise of sitting down. You have the, of course, institutional vision, kind of statement. You've got the, kind of your strategy and progress, plan of progress of how you want to grow and all that. Along with that, the purpose for which we want to exist. How are we going to differentiate in terms of value adding? How are you going to manage the twin responsibilities of the doing ability with the being awareness, first of all, as an institution? First, become clear about ourselves in terms of we will be doing deliverers and being humanists. How are we going to combine that? And then make that as a representative experience available to the children. If we can begin with this, I think we are there.
Sure. Thank you very much, Rajeev. Your quick thoughts on competency, because this is again to talent or passion. How do you try to put it across? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, hats off to Raja sir. I mean, he's given a wonderful, opening on this whole aspect of competency and taken it to the depth of what it means. One word that always, rings to my mind is some of the organization industries, especially manufacturing industries, started early 2000s, right? Whereas education sector is still now just talking about it, and that is something that Mr. Raja alluded about, and you also talked about, is something called as co-create.
Correct.
It's time about co-creating, and the other industries realized that it is very important to co-create not only with internal stakeholders but also with external stakeholders. And I think right now education as a sector is initiated the baby steps, and something we need to move forward in terms of co-creating with involving all internal stakeholders. So and again, sorry if I may sound a little bit demeaning over here, but the words like competency and all, when we say, they are again jargons, and then we say this competency, A competency, B competency, and you go to any school, they will have a nice display, vision, mission, the various competencies that they want. It's there on the wall, and there will be photographs also, with people standing in front of it, and a lot of selfies you will see. Over there, it's proud. It's a proud moment to display. But frankly, if I were to just walk across and ask 5 people, describe one competency, they will struggle.
Sure.
So
I think that's a message.
Yeah, it's a huge barrier.
It's a journey. It's a journey which needs to be
in terms of saying a word, interpersonal skills, or accountability, responsibility. So I can use these words, okay, but if I have to talk to a layman in the school, right, how they'll not be able to interpret what it is. And this is one of the practices that I was, lucky enough to, design and implement, in one of the schools that I worked for. Is what we said is we, worked on a concept of converting these competencies into behaviors. Because ultimately, how do you understand a competency? It is only by observing certain behaviors you would be able to tell whether that particular competency is being followed or not, is being understood well or demonstrated or no. For example, if we say accountability, right? How do I say that Mr. X is accountable or Ms. Y is accountable? So if we are able to observe that if there are 2 or 3 things which are assigned to them, the person has been able to complete them, or is has taken the ownership of the outcome of those 2-3 things, then we can say these are the behaviors that we can observe. So what we did was we broke down into task-based behaviors, we broke down into people-based behaviors and compliance-based behaviors. And this tool became so handy in the hands of the line manager, because the line manager, who is the coordinator in the case, was able to easily see whether the teacher is using a mobile phone in the class, yes, no. So she's able to observe that behavior, but she's not able to relate it to accountability, or because that is too big a jump for the coordinator. So when you are able to break them down into these observable behaviors and create a scorecard, this helps the coordinator to have a meaningful discussion at the end of the month saying, look, there were 10 instances where I observed, 8 instances are all appreciable. These are the 2 instances which are not in line with what our organization stands for. Can you just do course correction?
Okay.
So this series of changes helps a lot according to me.
Sure. Now let me ask Sonali, Gupta and Suprabha. You have heard the 2 industry people who are external to the school. I'm just, Rajeev, just for some time, I'm calling both of you are external because both of, because just to give them the perspective, because they are from the leaders, they are from the other side of the compound wall. And now you heard of them. Is there something called as a professional standard which NEP is talking about, and we are making so much noise about it? Is there something which has been defined more than the education, qualification, and experience when you hire people or when you take people?
So should I go ahead?
Yeah, anyone, both of you, one by one. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I agree and disagree to some extent with both Mr. Krishnamoorthy and Rajeev. And of course, when you say that when you have to kill a principal, you kill a teacher, you make her the principal.
No, that was not the intent. I was just trying to say that, see, because being somebody who's been a teacher and now moved away to, work with schools, and then also work with industry.
That's true. I think it's a choice that you as a person have to stay connected with the children and with your team, and then you don't miss out because of your that thought. I also probably, when I got into became the principal, I thought, oh no, now I'm going to not be teaching and not be connected. But then because I was so clear that I'm not going to allow this to happen, it did not happen. So thankfully,
that's all I can say. Just continue what you're doing. That's very important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Secondly, coming to the professional, one thing that I would want to say is that the teachers, yes, they need to have a professional degree in place. But today, a teacher is so much more than that. Like Dr. Krishnamoorthy just said that, we have to have a differentiator. Now, how is it that that teacher who we are hiring with the subject expertise make a difference in our school? So I would like to share something over here by Simon Sinek. I don't know if you've heard of him. I'm sure you would have. His golden circle theory really resonates with me. So he says that probably the most important message that an organization or individual can communicate is the why of what you do. And so he begins with the what is it that you do? How is it? So you have a teacher who's teaching English. They know they have to, what is it that they are teaching? They're teaching English. How is it? They would know how the grammar is going to be taught, and they have a lesson plan. But why is very, very important. And I think we all need to begin with the why first instead of what. So when you're hiring, like we were discussing, you are very sure of the
Sonali, ma'am.
Understand and then bridge that so that the school or the organization moves forward. And I think if at the end of the day we are very clear that our differentiator is that we are going to have a happy school is why we are all here, I think that makes it so much easier. So that is where the vision and the mission statement of the school comes in, because that provides a moral compass and helps us to align everything and anything that we are doing in the organization.
Sure. Suprabha, ma'am, just go ahead.
So, in all this conversation, there are a few questions actually which that have been there and it's coming up again. Many times now, the schools are also looked up as a corporate. It's a statement which comes again and again and again and again. Why are we relating schools to corporate? As a question which it actually comes to my mind also.
No, ma'am. There is no. See, the problem, Suprabha, ma'am. The problem is there is a conflict between Lakshmi and Saraswati. So the problem is about Lakshmi and Saraswati conflict. That's where we are trying to talk about the corporate. Yeah.
So I mean, we are dealing with children. We are dealing with emotions. We are dealing with. It's like working. It's like a mechanic working on a ignition stopped vehicle and a doctor working on a continuously working vehicle. That's a kind of difference which I can see. Like, so I keep having this question that there are certain areas where we really can't say that no, this has to be this way. No, it will not happen. But for sure, most schools today have actually started having industry connect. Most schools have actually started thinking on the terms that these children are going to be our future, not just the future of us, the future of the nation, future of the world. So what is it that we need to take on? How do we actually allow, from when we had the typical only curriculum, only lessons doing, now the teachers have also, a lot of changes come into that. We are not now only teaching what is there in the book. Most of the teachers put the book away and are actually bringing in a lot more information to the students. Now, career counseling once was never there. It was just for the namesake. Now it is not the case. The career we are talking about. So, I in my school have been actually finding, oh, this is also coming up.
Sure.
What would be the future like? So, I am inventing myself. The teachers are inventing themselves, and we are facilitating the students. So students come up with lot of ideas. Rather, so many times they tell, "Ma'am, please go and read this," and we are willing to do that. We are willing to alter. We are wanting them to also tell us what is it. I remember Game of Thrones was one of my cheat methods of getting the children to complete their work. I had to be abreast with what they are watching.
Correct. The contextualization, I think, is very, very critical.
Absolutely.
Now let's hear from both the industry people, and then I will ask both of you two mantras, how to ensure that the guru gets back what he or she was. Okay, so that's something to you, both of you. But to the people from the other sector, from the industry, what are the two mantras or three mantras, simple mantras, which you would like schools to follow? And anyone can start, Rajeev or Kitty, anyone. Yeah.
Okay.
Just three mantras.
There are, in fact, two broad things that I want to talk about. And within that, there are some sub-particles. If it's okay, then I'll talk about these two.
We have time, little constraints, sir. So what we'll do is that's why I said that we can kind of quickly.
Yeah. Well, the first one is, in terms of the whole question of making teaching desirable, my answer is make it enjoyable, equitable, and enlargeable. I think that's the most important thing. Enjoyable by creativity and freedom, equitable by bringing in respect and dignity to that much more than what is existing, and enlargeable by which I'm saying there is a four-dimensional part of a teacher: teach, subject, coach the youngster to evolve, create materials, environment, context of development, manage responsibilities of the institution, create a four-dimensional role available. I think this is the first part that I would look at. The second one, in terms of nurturing new talent, I would say, create visible, experienceable value. And it has got four dimensions. Role value in terms of the economic worth of a teacher's role. Okay. The second one is the grow value, the opportunities to grow. Don't get stuck with the earlier definition of career progression. Actually talk of career pathways, possibilities. Earning path, learning path, expertise path, experimental path, leadership path. You have 6 pathways actually available. Become creative in terms of saying, how can we open up this for them? Respect value is in terms of making them as partners of progress of the institution. It's not just the industry that needs to talk about employee shareholding and things of that kind. I'm just sowing a seed. There are many, many possibilities. Okay? Because educational institutions are one of the biggest businesses in this country. And there is no denial about it. And finally, the recognition value. So role value, grow value, respect value, and recognition value. If we can actually look at these things and where we can dive deep so very well, I think we'll make a difference.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kitty. Yeah, Rajeev.
I'll keep it very brief, Senthil. One big mantra from my side is R3. Something that I have practiced religiously and diligently for all these years. R3 stands for respect, regard, and recognition. Okay, you should have respect for everybody. You should regard for every individual, whichever position they have reached through their efforts and not just by luck. And every single opportunity you need to recognize. So R3 is something which can become a fabric of the organization. The second point is inclusivity. Include as many people as possible in your journey. Because the more you're able to include, with compassion and kindness, there is a sustained growth and happiness. And more important, today we have realized that happiness, being happy.
Correct.
Thank you.
Agree. Thank you. Yes, Sonali. If you've given a Vardhan, okay, today we give you a Vardhan, change the whole scenario for the Guru. What is that quick thing that you would like to do, or what is that one thing you would like to opt for?
I think for me, everything begins with trust. I think to have the trust or the belief in the teacher that they have the potential to do whatever they set out to do. They are already talented, like we discussed, to give them the space to nurture that talent, give constructive feedback, and then again, not to forget the appreciation, so that they work and improve themselves further and share the best practices across. I think there's no way for goodness not to spread. So I think we are all here for that goodness, the good work that we are doing in schools to spread across and create a ripple effect across the world. Very easily we call ourselves, our children, global learners. How do we go to that global platform? It's so easy. Start with that person in front of you. So I think appreciation is very, very important.
Thank you. Yes, Suprabha ma'am. Ek mantra.
Just few words.
Ek Vardhan.
The first one is respect and recognition for everything that they do, however small it might be. It makes a huge difference when a teacher has said that, wow, this is amazing what you did. From parents, from the management, and from people around, more so the society. They need to start respecting teachers, which is really going down. The second thing is economic strengthening. A lot of teachers go back the second half of the day to do some other work so that they can run their families. So we also need to see that when we talk of them at par with corporates, are we getting that there as well? So these are the two takeaways. I mean, these are the two things which I would like to.
Sure. Thank you very much, panelists. But I think it's very, very important. What is the message which came out from academics? And I think this is where myself and Kitty, I wanted to actually meet him last month on this subject of learning world to the world of work. Learning world to the world of work, where exactly there's the actual gap and where exactly we need to put it. So that's something which I will surely go back, and then all of you will be surely getting to know about it very soon. So once we try to look at, but the message was very, very clear. The mass law theory needs to be completely ulta when it comes to academics. If you don't have self-actualization, teaching mein mata. Don't come to teaching. Okay, until there's a reason for economics and other things, don't come. Because see what happens if you're not passionate. Qualification, competencies, those things we can keep adding on to our bucket list. I think that is something which will happen, so we don't have to worry much about it. But when it comes to the recognition, yes, we need recognition, but let's not use shortcuts for recognition. Because I heard in one of the panels, somebody made a mention that we encourage people to go for recognition, so-called awards, but don't buy awards. That's my request. Okay, that's my request. Because teachers, we are all passionate. Our students are our, recognitions. Whatever we have done, it comes through them. And I think that's something very, very important. Just to conclude my session, I would love, people know me, that I conclude always with 3 alphabets, A, B, C. A is about right awareness. I think we need right awareness. You heard Kitty, you heard Rajeev. Both of them gave perspectives, what exactly are some of the practices which are being done. Now, don't try to do Control-C, Control-V, those practices into academics. Because this is one of the major challenges which I have seen. Don't do practices. That is for a different world. Come back, understand your background. Come back, understand your context, and then contextualize things to your environment. Don't try to do, please do Control-C, Control-V, right awareness, even before somebody joins, how you can add value and recognize that person after a year that you added value, what you have given. Because the letter, it's not only the biodata. I think it's very interesting to have somebody to express how somebody can add value to that institution. I think that's the right awareness. The second thing is that based on this right awareness, the second B will happen. That is nothing but building capability, competencies in teachers. Because that is where investment needs to be done. A lot of investment needs to be done. And I'm sorry to say, in the total budget of the schools, it is still less than single digit, I can say, where budgets are being allocated when it comes to teacher training. So my request is that you should, I think my, open challenge to the ADB organizers, okay? Like I always leave a challenge for them. So this time I'm saying, do a complete half a day session only on this kind of a topic, because this is the most needed thing for us right now, when there's a huge transition happening, and half-baked, thought process should not kill our own futures. So that's where the B comes in. And finally, if you would like to see a good C, that is the change, parivartan, and if you're wanting that change to happen, I think please invest on people practices. With that note, thank you, Kitty ji, thank you, Rajeev ji, thank you, Sonali ji, and thank you, Suprabha ji. I think it was wonderful to get your, I had, because of the time, I'm cutting it short, but I think there will be again another opportunity where we'll meet and spend some time together to understand more about it. Thank you very much. Thank you, organizers, for giving me the opportunity to get these, to get these, inputs from all of them to put it across for all of you. Thank you very much.
Acharya Devo Bhava. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was an electrifying discussion indeed. Dr. Senthil very excellently deliberated the triggering of a sequence of thoughts on teaching as a profession and self-actualization. Maybe God understood our thirst for knowledge. He wanted somebody to lead us to become wiser, someone with a heart of compassion, someone who would accept challenges regardless of the opposition, someone who could see potential and believe in the best in others. That's the reason he made teachers. Another thought that came up during the discussion was about know the teachers or know about the teachers. Thought-provoking insights on how talent management should become the culture of the organization and not a topic for a day. R to R, recruitment to retirement, is the talent being identified and appreciate for ask, attitude, skill, and knowledge. Are we looking at respect, regard, and recognition? Last but not the least, I also completely resonate with the fact that we have potential teachers with us among our student community. How are we working for it? Going forward, I would now request Dr. Jayaraman sir to encapsulate the key learnings from the discussion from his perspective. Over to you, sir.
Sir, you're muted. Yeah.
Sudha, have you got the time for this? Or I am on borrowed time?
Yes. A quick sum up is fine. We have another 8 minutes to go. Yeah.
There are two semantic vectors reverberating the atmosphere for a short while was professionalism and competencies. These were the two major semantic vectors I could hear. Now, being semantic vectors, the volume they generate depends upon who generates the volume. That is the most important one. Now, when it comes to competencies, being from a scientific field and a nuclear engineer for 40, 50 years, I know what competency means. You cannot turn a switch unless you know what the natural and probable consequences of it are, unless you're technically absolutely clear to nano details. And that is what competency means. In the manufacturing field, competency means quite a lot. But when you apply credentials, I will go more by quality management of Deming and so on with respect to teaching properties. Dr. Senthil was trying to define professionalism because he wanted to put boundary conditions for that. Yes, unless you put boundary conditions under the limiting factors are defined, you can never put the volume of meaning into that. So, is it a profession similar to that of the doctor, that of a scientist, that of a lawyer? Yes, then you have your academic degrees. For example, in my profession, the age at which I took my PhD is my entry to the profession. In the scientific field, in engineering and management, age at PhD is the professional qualification. If I took it at 35, I am worthless. If I took it at 23, it matters a lot. If I took it at 24, I have slipped by. So there are professions where rigorous academic maintains are met. We must also be very cautious about Mickey Mouse degrees floating around today. You find when you are going into the academic field and you find a large number of people with Mickey Mouse degrees, you are degenerating the student community because the academic path is a rigorous path and there is no shortcut for that. So I would like to say that quality management, either quality conformance to specifications or quality conformance to requirements. There are only two types of it. If you can merge these two, confinement to requirements and confinement to specification, you have the ideal situation. So to make it a profession, a truly professional one, with all the boundary conditions defined, to know the career path, the word career progression was called anathema. Yes, I do agree with that. But when you start in a certain career, where you end, the R to R of Senthil needs to be analyzed. In what steps, how many years of effort you have to put into the next stage? It is like the excitation orbital of a nuclear atom. If you give this much energy, I'll go from 1s to 2s1. If I give a little more energy, I'll go to 2p1. So we must have a quantitative idea of the profession we are getting in. Passion, great. Without passion, you can't do it. But I have all the passion to be a doctor. I cannot start unless I have the competency for it. Passion enriches competencies. And without competency, you cannot enter a profession. That has been my experience as a professional for 40 years in the nuclear and engineering field. Thank you.